Well, welcome everybody that is watching today's Conversations in Careers session. So I guess this is kind of season 2. So we started doing the Conversations in Careers interviews for Building Life Science Adventures 2021, which was our conference back in March this year. And the purpose of it was to give students and early career seekers or career shifters kind of pure and honest insight into careers within the life sciences and kind of promote the breadth of opportunities. So I'm delighted to be joined today by Derek Jones, who is the CEO of Babraham Research Campus. And in a moment, he's going to introduce himself and tell us a little bit about his role. So thank you for watching, and over to you, Derek.
Thank you, Jasmine. Thank you very much for giving me an opportunity to talk about the things I've done. And any advice I'd give to people starting their career in life sciences. So I'm delighted to be able to join in on this, really.
Brilliant. And also just to say, actually, that Babraham Research Campus are supporters of our conference next year. So a big thank you to you guys.
You're welcome.
Fabulous. Okay, well, if we kick off then, Derek, so can you tell me a little bit about your current role and how you got there?
Okay, so my current role, I am the Chief Executive Officer, the CEO of the Babraham Research Campus. So we're a co-location of world-class academic research in the Babraham Institute, and we have about 60 odd life science companies clustered around this campus community. We are probably one of the most preferred sites in Europe for early stage companies who are in life sciences to set up. And I think the key message I want to go over about the campus as opposed to, we talk a lot about buildings and property here, but the campus is more than the sum of the buildings. It's about the community we have here, the capabilities, the connectivity, and I hope that people who come here or engage with us see us much more than a collection of buildings.
So did you always know that you wanted to be the CEO of Babraham Research Campus?
So I think everybody's dream one day to say it would be great to be the CEO. Let me disavow you of that. Occasionally, it's not always great to be the CEO, by the way, because the buck does really stop with you. Did I think I'll be the CEO at the Babraham Research Campus? Absolutely not. And I think that has been part of my career journey. It's never really been planned. It has moved from place to place and taken on opportunities that are presented to me or I've gone to find. So I never in a million years would have thought actually one day you would be Chief Executive of the Babraham Research Campus at all. Though I was always very keen and wanted to make sure I was in life sciences. That's pretty key.
Okay, so did you start out your kind of life sciences aspirations when you were in education? Did that start at university or?
Well, yeah. So I really, at a reflection of my age, I really wanted to be an airline pilot because I thought that's glamorous and that was the thing to do, and I wanted to do that for a whole variety of reasons, including not actually working hard enough at school to get the right A levels. I didn't. And it was right in the middle of the oil crisis a long time ago, and that all stopped. But by the way, so I was always quite enjoyed science, and I was actually quite reasonably good at it. And it was one of the easiest things I was doing at school, as opposed to French or German. And but I think this happens to a lot of people. I had a really inspiring A-level chemistry teacher, really inspiring. Led me to think, you know what? Actually, I think I'd quite like to do chemistry degree. So I did a chemistry degree at what at the time was called Kingston Poly, which is a university now, which is in Southwest London. And I did a 4-year sandwich course of chemistry, in which my 3rd year was in industry, which is something I'd really recommend for people if they have the opportunity. So I spent a year in industry working in a lab as a chemist, looking for novel beta-lactamase inhibitors for antibiotics. So I had a year as a sandwich student. And I think that really solidified my thoughts on going, yeah, I really would quite like to do science. I thought there was nothing more exciting as a chemist to make something that nobody's ever made before, ever. And do you know what? It might have been the one that you made was suddenly the best antibiotic ever been known, and you made it first time. So I thought it was quite exciting. So when I went back in my last year of my degree, actually a final year after the sandwich year, to be frank, is pretty straightforward. Because you're used to working for a year, used to working in the lab. And so the last year was much easier than the previous 2 years where I hadn't done much work, to be frank. So one of my advice is to knuckle down pretty quickly because you have to catch up in the end. So, and that's what I did. In my first job when I graduated, I worked for a Merck Sharp and Dome, or Merck, and I was a chemist working in a place called Turlings Park, which is just outside Harlow. So I did that for 2 years as a chemist, but realized quite quickly that I probably, it wasn't a long-term career for me being in the lab, because a bit like gardening, I didn't really have the hands for it. And so I did a master's degree in information technology, but I kept in the life sciences business. So I did a master's degree, got a job doing IT in a life science company. And that sort of led me into a whole series of stuff, which primarily my experience in life sciences has been driven through joining a company called Kairos, which became Kyra Science, which helped develop the first UK type biotech product, was called Kyrocane. And I did loads of business, but I got involved in business development. When they realized I was a bit of a disaster in the lab, I ought to do something a bit more constructive. So I was always involved in business development and corporate development rather than working in the laboratory. So that's my background. And then after I also did an MBA at Judge Business School in Cambridge, cohort number 1 of that. So, but my whole career has been in life sciences.
Amazing. Thank you so much for sharing it. So I've got a couple of questions, I guess, from that. And it's really nice to hear you speaking so enthusiastically about it. And I guess that coming from your role model back in your A-levels, was it?
Yeah.
Which is amazing, because I think there's a bit of a stigma, I guess, against science being more of a challenging subject, which tends to deter people from it because it seems harder and less achievable, I guess. But
I would challenge whether it's a more difficult thing to do. I think there's some fundamentals that you've got to get your head around. And I think once you've got your head around it, the rest of it is building on that knowledge. So I would challenge somewhat. Yeah, there's a bit more maths involved, but not tons more. But I think if you get the fundamentals right and clear in your head, I think it's no more challenging than any other subjects, really.
Definitely, and I would agree, actually, and I think that's why it's so important with the way that it's taught and communicated to people, that people understand it better, and instead of being worried about it being a scary STEM subject, I guess.
Yeah, it's not people. I think the part of the challenge with chemistry is, and sometimes it's quite difficult to visualize in your mind what's going on, and there are some strange stuff going on, but it's the fundamentals. Once you've got the fundamentals, I think the rest of it is pretty straightforward.
So also you mentioned about doing an industry placement and how that was a really valuable experience. How did you go about finding that? Because I think that's a huge challenge that a lot of students are maybe facing at the moment. What are your
I was really lucky, and I know it is a challenge now. Absolutely get that. I think the reason for that is when I did my first degree a long time ago, the university made the effort to find the placements. That was part of their job. I think it's much harder now because there's less of them. But basically, I got placed. I didn't have much of a choice. They placed me, which was great. And the other thing I found out of that, and again, when I went for my interview at Merck after I graduated, I didn't get interviewed on molecular formula or where an electron goes in a particular reaction. They put me in a lab. Like the interview was, they put you in a lab and asked you to look at an element, asked you to look at an infrared, and then gave you loads of different solvents and asked you how would you run a thin layer chromatography plate. Well, if you'd worked in industry for a year, that was it. You did this. And actually, if you wanted to learn how the electrons moved in a reaction, well, look it up. So it was that practical hands-on experience, I think, is so important. if you're an early stage career scientist, actually being able to do the job with your hands.
Amazing. So were there any kind of challenges that you faced along the way, any kind of barriers, anything like that that you came across and you thought, oh, not sure what to do next?
Of course there would be. It would be wrong for me to say otherwise, but I have to say, I suspect that barriers I created myself rather than barriers that have been created in my way, because you have to find your way around about it. The barriers would be, actually, are you putting enough effort into this to make it work? Are you putting, you've got to get down to your books, you've got to do that. Do I go out tonight? Or do I do a bit of studying? Knowing all those sort of things, but they're your internal barriers rather than going, there's something out there that's going to make life harder for me. Well, you have to find a way around that. As long as you are committed to put in the work, I'm not saying go mad, but if you're willing to put in the work, you should try to manage your way through the barriers, because those barriers are created by you, not by other people.
Absolutely. And you also completed your MBA. Now, is that something that you think is very relevant and helped you in your career, or do you think that is something that you could have done your job now without doing? Do you think?
That's a really good question, and I think that's the $64,000 question. The $64,000 question. I find it a really interesting experience, but and I got mine funded by my company, so I didn't pay for it. So that was other reasons to do it. But I think you have to be a certain time in your career to do one. I think the challenge really is people will do an MBA maybe a little bit too early in their career, thinking it's a shortcut. I don't think it's a shortcut. I think it helps you along the way. But if you've not got a lot of experience working in organizations or managing people or having a diverse set of experiences, I'm not sure you'd get as much out of it as you would actually. I think there's a period of time to do it, but don't do it too early is my advice, really.
Really great advice. Really great advice. So throughout your career, can you give me maybe some key experiences that you are grateful for, or any key things that you've learned?
That's a very good question, and I thought a little bit about this when you asked me first to do this. I think the things I learned, and it sounds really naff. Sorry, it sounds really naff. There's a few things. Is you grab opportunities. I was very lucky. A very important part of my career in life sciences. I've been doing life sciences for 35 years. As I worked for a company where it was a startup. Reason we started, I was employee number 17, but we became a FTSE 100 company. And there was loads of things I got asked to do, which I had no experience of at all. But I was asked to do, and I went, oh yeah, I can do that. And then you go and learn how to do it. And I would encourage people to seek out those opportunities and ask for opportunities to do those things. That's the first one. And I know the other way I've found out over the years is those people that you work with early on in your career are likely the people you're going to come across the rest of your working life. Be kind. And one day you will find out that person that you worked with 25 years ago actually end up being quite an influential person, and they will remember when you really weren't very helpful to them 25 years ago. So it sounds really naff, but I'm a believer in these things will come back to you. So it's not that sort of adage of going, be kind to people going up because you'll see them coming down. Hopefully you'll see them all up. And that's how networks work. Make the most of your networks. Your networks come from a working career that may span 25, 30 years, and make the most of it.
Definitely. I think you're so right. Being kind to people is incredibly important, because something that I've definitely learned over the last year, because I've only spent 1 year within life sciences, or just over, is that people are very kind if you just ask them for help. So yeah, I think building your network is very important, and yeah, just being kind to people. So yeah, I think that's a really fantastic.
It does sound a bit naff, I have to say that, but you know, there's a little bit of truth there. Or treat people with respect. Maybe that's a better way of putting it. They treat people with respect, because even if they really hacked you off, trying to respect, because you know what, in years to come, you'll come across these people again, and there may be really good reasons why you know, what do they say? Revenge is a meal best eaten cold. Yeah, just hold your tongue and wait. You know, it might be the best thing to do. But I think also what's quite interesting about life sciences in particular is I think very few people go into life sciences because they want to make a shed load of money. They go into life sciences because A, it's intellectually stimulating and interesting, and B, because they want to make a difference. I've met hardly anybody in life sciences who's not wanted to do life sciences other than to make a difference. You know, going back to my original concept, I could be the person who made that first compound ever that was the most successful antibiotic. I think everybody wants to work in an industry again. It could be something I've done or helped do that made a huge difference. And I think that's the great excitement, not only the scientific excitement of our jobs and what we do, is going, it could be you.
I think that is such a key message, particularly for recruiting great talent into the industry, because we aren't just competing against other companies within the life sciences, it's against all sorts of different industries, banking and things like that, tech. So yeah, I think that's a really key message to give about the life sciences. So if you were to meet your younger self way back when you were doing your university degree, what kind of key advice would you give yourself?
Well, that's a very good question. I think one piece of advice I'd give myself is you've got to do the work eventually, so you might as well get on with it now. It's got to be done, you know.
Yeah.
But actually, just do enough. Don't do too much. Just enough to get through. I think that's the first one. Again, the other one I mentioned was about these. You seize those opportunities. And I think the world is different now. You know, when I was first moving into this career, you know, you sort of had a career that was the same job for 25, 30 years. That's not how the world's going to be now. And one advice, if I was my age now, is going, do you know what? Do it because you enjoy it now. You can do something else another time. You know, don't think that what you're doing now is the job I've got to do for the rest of my life. It isn't. And new jobs get invented all the time that we never even thought of. Who would have thought when I was graduating that you have the idea of a web designer? Yeah, you know, or a bioinformatician. Yeah, they didn't exist. So I think my other thing I would say to myself, so the three things is actually you've got to do the work, so you might as well get on with it. Make the most of every opportunity and find those opportunities you can, but realize basically this is a series of journeys. It's not a single journey. And if you have a job that gets you to the next journey, that's great. This is not something you're going to have to do the same thing over and over again. That's what I think to myself.
And I hope you don't mind me springing this question on you. Would you do anything differently?
Oh, would I do anything differently? That's a really good question. No, I don't think so. I may have made different career choices. You know, I came from a background where actually I was the first person in my family to go to university. I was the first person of all my friends go to university. So we had different career choices. You know, the idea when I was young of being a doctor, a pharmacologist or whatever, just didn't enter your mind. So if I do anything again, maybe I don't overplan. I mean, that's another thing I would give myself. Don't overplan it. People say, oh, I've got my plan for the next hour. Get it, because you'll be disappointed. So if I was to do something else again, I've been really lucky. I've met some fabulous people. I've had a lot of fun. And I hope directly or indirectly, I've made some difference, positive difference. So I think the answer is probably not. Though, of course, in reality, I'd rather have been a Spitfire pilot. But there we go. That wasn't going to happen. How much fun would that be? Or a tornado pilot? That would be pretty cool. But there we go.
Brilliant, love that, and what a way to kind of wrap up the session. It's been so great to be able to talk to you about your career journey, and yeah, I've thoroughly enjoyed it, and I hope that people find it useful and insightful, and I'm sure they will. So thank you so much, Derek, for your time.
You're very welcome. Thank you. All right, bye-bye.
Thank you.